So I can go ahead and start us off. I think, from what I kind of see from our parents, from our adults, I think they understand that the teenage years for their students are really formative, and so I think ultimately they want to see their students formed in a biblical worldview and formed in the gospel. So I think a couple of things that they want to see to be able to accomplish that. One is solid biblical teaching. I know that's really important to a lot of our parents, even to the point that like a couple of weeks ago, I had a parent sit in on a Wednesday night that's like not normally a volunteer, just to kind of hear what was going on and everything. I think they want the second thing I think they want to see somebody that's going to be able to connect with their students on a level that they're not going to be able to. I think a lot of parents remember what it was like to be a teenager, and they know that your parents is not always the first person you're going to run to whenever you have problems. And so I think a big thing out of their student ministry is another adult that's been there and done it that is going to be able to connect with their students. I think the third thing they look for kind of piggybacks off of that second thing of having somebody that has a relationship with them is somebody that's having gospel conversations with them, whether it's a lost student that needs Christ, or whether it's a student that's just growing in their faith, somebody that's going to personally disciple them, somebody that's going to say, hey, something similar like that happened to me when I was your age. This is how I dealt with it. This is maybe what I did right, maybe what I did wrong. But looking back on it, this is how you should go about it. And I think a lot of it kind of boils down to like a mentorship aspect of just by nature of students. It'd be nice if we knew that our kids were going to come to us with every little problem, every little detail, but the reality is they're not. And so I think one big thing is kind of having that relationship and knowing that you're going to get solid biblical teaching out of it.
Well, I was kind of thinking almost the opposite direction, but just still thinking of the worldly viewpoint that is kind of seeped in the secular view of how parents want their kids to have good grades or do well in school, and do well in extracurriculars, whether that be in sports or whatever else they've got going on. And this is just what I had seen with people that I grew up with, is that they want them to come to church, but that's about it. Just as long as they come on Sunday mornings, they don't care. Just as long as they're there. I with my own kids, I would like to have like family discipleship, because that's not something I had growing up, and I don't know where I would be if I did, if I would be in a better spot or anything like that. So I'd like to do have a little bit more family priority in that. Also being able to teach them how to do their own seeking of God, or like on their own, in their own walk with God, and forming that. Because again, that was something I didn't have until coming to college, having to figure out for myself. And then I totally lost what the other thing was. Mentorship was one, but also that they, involvement in the church, like that they would go because they want to be there and want to serve somewhere, not because we're telling them to or because they have to. So that's what I would like to see.
Most Korean parents are interested in their children's success. They also compare their children's growth with farming and evaluate their result by occupation and annual salary. Many of the parents I've seen do their best to help their children succeed. Their hopes were not their happiness, but their children's success. Parents tell their children to go to academies, study, attend a good university, and live for a good job for success. Their top priority was not their children's health or happiness, but their successful lives and high-paying lives. The priority of the parents I saw was money, education, and social status. I'm not a parent yet, but if I become a parent, my first priority to teach is to know God. In other words, to fear God. Relationships with God should be the top priority. The second is love. I want to teach them to love God and love my neighbors. I want to teach my child to grow up with love and to be a person who can show love to others. The last one is sincerity. The Bible teaches us not to have two hearts. I want to teach my child not to lie and not to do hypocritical.
Thank you. Yeah, I think like Luke said, I think for like culturally speaking, like in the Hispanic, but I'm in a predominantly Hispanic church, and I think the one of the highest priorities is like getting a degree, you know, and going to college is a big priority I see in our church, and I think that's that's awesome because I mean I want the same for my kids. Um, but it's very you know I personally have seen some parents you know make it a bigger priority than you know just bringing them to youth on bringing them to youth on you know Wednesdays and Sundays or just bringing them to church in general. And so that's among one of the highest priorities. But I also see the parents who are who want their children to have a relationship with God, you know, and you can see that that's a priority. I think getting their students involved in the church, and then lastly, a big another priority that I see is you know there's a lot of kids. I have a lot of kids right now in the youth group that play sports, and you know travel ball gets in the way sometimes. Going to places like to football games and things like that will come in the way of you know them seeing them attend the church. And so I guess for me like I that's also like as a parent I have one of my children's in sports right now, and I can see why making that a priority like takes up a lot of time. Every Saturday I have to take one of my sons to go play basketball, and although I want to see him you know do well, I have to remind myself like man like this is not going to be what I want him to know for the rest of his life is just play basketball, but really to have a relationship with Christ and to really show him more than anything to have a relationship with Christ. And being in ministry, I just have to remind myself too that my family is my first ministry, you know what I mean? And not to neglect them, but to really show them. And I didn't realize how hard it was going to be, you know, trying to balance those two. Because at first it was just like do everything for the ministry and family comes second. And I really had to stop myself there because I was noticing I was neglecting my family and spending way more time with the youth than you know with my children. And so I had to learn how to really balance those two out. And here's one of them right now. So yeah, yeah.
I think you guys all nailed it on the head. And it's hard to talk about your average parent because you know there is kind of you get a mix really of you know those that are really grounded biblically and those that aren't. And like I have at our church we have a youth committee, and it's basically a think tank of our biblically solid parents that are really focusing on the discipleship of their kid and all of that, and that is a huge help for me. But it's honestly a small minority, it's very sadly a small minority of the rest of our parents that oddly, you know, those come to church on Sunday, they don't really connect to anything else, not connect to a Sunday school class. They don't, you know, their kids themselves don't go to Sunday school or anything like that. They just come and they're apart and they go home. And I think I would say if we're looking at the priorities of those parents, I think one is that one priority is they want their kid to be a moral, you know, a morally at least what culturally speaking they would call a good person. You know, they want to be morally good, and I think that kind of loops into a spiritual sense too. They think, oh, if my kid's being moral and they're going to church, then, you know, in their minds, on at least a very surface level idea of what they think discipleship is, like, okay, then my kid is doing what the Bible says, don't lie, don't steal, you know, whatever. Then they think, okay, that's a good thing. And well, then the rest of it kind of fills in the gaps of, well, I want my kid to have good grades, go to good college. Well, I want my kid to be the best, you know, they can be on a on a sports team. And really that all kind of revolves around scholarships too. They want to get grades, they get a scholarship. They want to be a great athlete, they can get a scholarship somewhere. You know, and I don't want, you know, it's like those are kind of the big things I see, at least as far as the priorities of parents on that side of the scale. And to where I think it's really on us as youth pastors, right, to communicate what discipleship is. And I would even say as a church, really, even as at large, what discipleship is, because at least for answering the last part of this question, what would be, you know, what I would see, what I would encourage them for their priorities to be is one that each one of those teenagers would find their identity in Christ, right? They would know Jesus. They would measure their worth not by what the world tells them, because the world will have a completely different measuring scale than what the Bible does, right? And so you have that, and then they are connected to a family of God. They see church as essential. Sam Rainer has a book called Essential Church, where he talks about that 18 to 24-year-old range that leaves the church, and he went out and did a whole bunch of research, and basically the bottom line was they didn't see Jesus as an essential part of their life. And so for them to realize what they're you know, that find their identity there, they find out how they can be a part of the church today, but also that they can be equipped and discipled to then go, that'd be my third one, to be able to share their faith with other people, you know. But that's a completely different side of a coin when you look on this side, where you have I just want a spiritually moral, you know, person who's going to then focus on grades and all that kind of stuff, because that spiritualness is very much a kind of closed in, you know, just receiving only you know, a lifestyle, instead of being what the Bible tells us, which would then be to go therefore make disciples of all nations, right? And so there's this big disconnect, and I think comes down to what discipleship is. What does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? And so again, it's kind of hard to talk about the average parent, because it's kind of, you get a mix of both, at least for us, at least for our church, because we do have those that are, you know, man, every time we have something church function wise, not just youth ministry, but just church wide, like their entire family is there, you know, and that's like the model family for me. And I've told them that, and I said, you guys do wonderful. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Right. And then you have those that, like, you know, their kid, like they'll drop off. Then the other side of the coin, they're, you know, they'll drop off this family will drop off their teenager on Wednesday, but they won't come inside. They won't get connected to an adult small group, because, you know, they're not really connected at all. You know, I would say, you know, like they come and consume, they're not connected. So that's, at least I hope that makes sense as far as how I'm trying to explain both sides of the coin here.
Yeah, as Luke said, the Korean parents' highest three priorities are that first is going to good college, second is getting good job, third is have good husband or wife, and their parents want their children have a good life. Even though their parents are known as good Christians, they do not think that their children should go to church every Sunday. They do not say to go to church nor teach Bible in the house. I have two children. One is in university. Second is in high school. After sending my daughter in university, I think believe in God is really important. My daughter said Christian students in her university drink alcohol while they are living in the dormitory, and they do not go to church. When my daughter entered the university, me and my wife searched the evangelical church where she can go. And now she's attending the church. and serve as a Sunday school teacher. I think attending church on every Sunday and serving a ministry became her habit. I think my three highest priority is first, going to church on every Sunday. Second, believing Jesus Christ as their Lord. Third, serving the church as according to the talent which God given them. Thank you.